When it comes to Nirvana, Kurt, Krist, and Dave are the first three names that typically come to mind. Understandably so, but there are others who were part of the Nirvana story in different ways, people who made their own unique contributions to the band. One of those people is Earnie Bailey, one of Nirvana's guitar techs who also worked as a guitar tech with the Foo Fighters. I did an interview with Earnie Bailey, and at one point he discussed how he got hired by Nirvana. I'm going to show you that clip now. This is a previously unreleased solo clip. If you'd like to see the full interview with Earnie Bailey, the link is in the description box below. How did essentially you start working with Nirvana?
When I first moved to Seattle, I took a job. I was managing an espresso bar, and I hired a gentleman named Rob Cater. He and I quickly became friends, mutual appreciation of music and the music that was going on in Seattle. And he happened to be roommates with Jason Everman, who was part of Nirvana. He was actually playing guitar at that point. And so Rob was kind of like, one of their first real serious fans, and he was super passionate about it. He would talk about it all day long, and at least when we were working. And so through him, I started to go see shows. I know that I was trying to date it. I think that there was a show that they played at the Coca that I was at, and I was trying to remember if that was before or after I started seeing them with Rob. I have a funny feeling it was before, and it was just something where I walked in and kind of watched him for a little while and walked out and didn't connect the dots till later. But through him, we started to go to shows, and it was really they did this thing called Lame Fest. It was at the Moore Theater with Mudhoney and Tad, I believe, and it was the day that the Bleach record was released, and I think it was the first place that you could actually get them for sale. And so Rob went up to the merch table and bought like 5 of them and handed me one, and so that to me, I think, was like the first time where I was able to take the album home and hear it like without having the live experience, because live, I think they were amazing if you were up close, but I typically stood back by the soundboard, just to kind of take it all in. So Rob was up there like right in front, and he was like in the trenches. And so he and I would usually have a different perspective about the show afterwards. I was just like, yeah, they're pretty good. And he was like, they were amazing. So, but after I actually had Bleach and gave it a listen, I know that Scoff, Blue, and Swap Meet were songs that were kind of a big deal to me, and changed the way I thought about them. It kind of moved them into the top notch in terms of like bands that I was interested in Seattle. So that was how I sort of entered the orbit, and being at the shows and around those guys. And then it wasn't really until later, till after Nevermind had come out, that I had run into Kurt at a show at the Vogue where Earth was playing, and we were talking then about guitars and such. And then even like within the same week, I think, I ran into Chris and Dave at the Crocodile, and I was playing pinball, and they came over and asked if they could play as well. And so we were kind of playing, and we just started talking about guitars and gear and things like that, and the old days a little bit, and talked about Rob for a while. And I guess through another sort of series of events, we started seeing each other more often, and that led to a job offer as they were borrowing a guitar tech from Sonic Youth for a while there, and then at one point, I think it was in Hawaii, they sort of parted ways, and they were looking for someone, and just I think as a matter of being at the right place at the right time, I asked them what was going on with all their destroyed gear, and Chris said that he had it at a handful of different shops around town, and it just wasn't really being taken care of. And I remember thinking in the back of my mind, I'd been around to a lot of guitar stores in the Seattle area, and they were always playing like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, but nobody seemed to like or be interested in Nirvana. And I was sort of curious, like even through conversations, there seemed to be this funny thing, like even in the mainstream in Seattle, Nirvana had this reputation as being, just like not they just weren't like a conventional rock band. I think they were. I don't know that around Seattle that they were fully understood. or accepted at that point. So, and I don't know if that had anything to do with their not being taken seriously or the work being done efficiently, but I just saw that as something where I would have been honored, and to be able to work on stuff for them and to take care of their stuff. So I said to Chris, I said, hey, I'll be more than glad to round everything up, fix it, and have it back to you tomorrow, and free of charge. And he was like, go for it, dude. So I did that, and he had just moved from Tacoma to Seattle, and we weren't living too far apart, and I had a restaurant in Seattle at the time, and so I think because he was sort of new to the neighborhood, and we just sort of had met, and I think it was around a period of time where Kurt was living in LA and newly married, and so I imagine that he was becoming more and more distant with Kurt, and for whatever odd reason, when we first started hanging out, we just started hanging out a lot and going and just doing a lot of things, and that led to the offer to work for them. Pretty early in '92,